Hi, I'm Jeff. This is Tropical Plants at 53 degrees north. So I'm filming this on Boxing Day. So I hope you all had a fantastic Christmas, as good as you possibly could in the circumstances. So not much going on today because we're not allowed to do a great deal on Boxing Day. We're not allowed to meet up with anybody anymore. So I thought it would be a good idea to do a little bit of reflection, seeing as we're coming to the end of the year. I've seen plenty of YouTube videos recently doing some kind of award ceremony towards the end of the year, especially in the tech world. Various smartphone awards videos cropping up all over the place. So I thought, well, why not have a look through my greenhouse, do a little bit of reflection and give one or two dubious awards out for the tropical plants that are in my greenhouse and they've been in my greenhouse for the best part of the year, and see if we can provide a little bit of light relief as we come towards the end of a very, very memorable, maybe not for the right reasons, 2020. So let's dive in. And we are in. Okay, so the first in my categories of awards for today is the largest or longest length of blooming period. Now, this is a close run thing because, as us orchid people know, orchids are well known for blooming for rather a long time. But I think I've got to give it to, and you've probably guessed it, it's not actually an orchid, it is a vine. I've got to give it to the Mandevilla vine. Here it is over here, my Mandevilla sanderi. And you can see, even though we're in the worst time of the year for light levels, for temperature, for humidity, we still have some glorious blooms over here. It's not as much as we have for the rest of the year, but even, if we've still got them in December, a couple going over here, but there's always more to come out with this vine. And as you can see, it just keeps going and going and going and going, and it's actually spreading over to the other side here now, and it's as far as down here, and it's still spreading even in December. I do have another one over here. This is a pink one, but that's not doing anywhere near as good for some reason. It's lost quite a lot of leaves, so I'm keeping my eye on it. But if I can just manage to get it through, I think, this early phase where it's not really that big of a root ball, I think at some point it should, hopefully anyway, be as vigorous as the red one. So that one, I think we had about 6 weeks where it didn't bloom last year, and we're heading towards that now. I think it was round about February time. So I'll keep my eye on it, but certainly for bang for the buck, if you've got a conservatory or a warmer greenhouse and you want a really trouble-free plant, then this is definitely got to be it. I've not showed you along this end. It goes all the way here as well. Over to this side, it started attaching itself to this plastic mesh over this side as well. And of course, if we're talking about length of blooming time, I've got to give an honourable mention to the streps over here, because again, streps have been blooming for a long time, and I could actually leave them, especially this crystal ice variety, I could leave them blooming right the way through the winter, but I like to give them a little bit of a rest in January and February. So at some point, certainly with all the ones apart from the crystal ice, I will be stripping them right back and giving them a rest so that they can really green up those leaves. I've already done a few down here. You can see these are beginning to get a lot greener now, ready for the new season. So yeah, streptocarpus, definitely bang for the buck. But for me, Mandevilla vine, Mandevilla sanderi, is the winner of the longest blooming tropical plant. Okay, the next one is the best recovery from near death. Well, I've had a lot of near death experiences with these plants in this environment. I'm going to give it to my Bougainvillea brasiliensis. Not looking particularly good. It's looking like it's near death again at the moment. But last year, everything fell off it. All the leaves, didn't have any blooms. I think it had a couple of blooms. And I repotted it, stripped it right back, pruned it right back to the base, and it came up and it gave me months of a beautiful show. Not as vigorous as it should be, but obviously it's in a north-facing greenhouse in the north of England, so it really needs lots of sun. But it's done really, really well, and I'm sure it'll come back again once the temperatures and the light levels return, and then I will eventually see some of that vigour and have it going up off to this side and across the top of the greenhouse, which is what the aim was originally. But to actually get one to grow in the north of England, I haven't seen any others in the north of England, so I'm pretty proud of that. So that for me is the best recovery from death. So moving on, most unusual bloom. Now I'll show you what it's like at the moment, and what I will do with a lot of these things, I will, in editing, I'll show you when they were at the best, so you can see what I'm talking about. So here, most unusual bloom for me is my Habenaria medusa. This is it at the moment. It's getting to the point where it's nearly ready for dormancy. In fact, I'm surprised that it hasn't gone into dormancy quicker than this. I need to wait for these to blacken or to really go yellow, and it's not too far off, and then I need to do something specific with it. I think I need to not water it. I think that was it, and I might have to repot it as well. But I'll make a video on that, because it's totally different to what you do with many orchids. But Habenaria medusa, very, very unusual bloom. I'll show it up on screen. I'll be able to see what I'm talking about. Really pleased with that one. That was one that I don't see around very often. So that was that one, most unusual bloom. Most admired blooms. Well, of course, we all admire all sorts of blooms, don't we? And if we didn't, we wouldn't have them in the greenhouse. Well, with the exception of this Pleurithalis restrepoides down here, I've kept it again this year, even though I'm really not that keen on it. For some reason, I can't throw it out. This one looks like it's going to be a nicer bloom than it was last year anyway. At least the leaves are looking better on this one. I threw away the old part of the plant and just kept the new versions, new divisions of it. But I'll let you see that one when it comes into its best. So what was we talking about? Most admired bloom. Well, I would say for me it was the Masdevallia ignea. I know lots of people can grow this. It's not particularly difficult unless you happen to live in a really hot country. The leaves are not looking too clever at the moment, mainly because of the sun that they got in the middle of summer. But as you can see, there's loads of new growth cropped up on it, and I've no reason not to think that when it comes around to February, March time, it'll start throwing up some bloom spikes again. But the blooms on this are so spectacular. The colour is so vibrant. It's no wonder it's got a word like ignea in the name, because it really is like a flame coming out of this plant. Gorgeous shapes of the blooms and just spectacular show-stopping blooms. So for me, I think that was the most admired, and I did a couple of videos on them and they got the most comments. Moving on to biggest fail of the year. I could choose dozens of plants for biggest fail of the year, but I'm going to go for two dendrobiums. One is this Dendrobium Sarnuk Thailand Black, which it did actually bloom for me this year. It looked like it had failed. It was in the cooler side of the greenhouse over last winter. Beautiful blooms on it when it arrived, some buds on it, they all opened up to beautiful blooms, and then it lost all its roots. Put it over on this side, repotted it. It looked like it, I mean, it grew that growth, this one and this growth, and it did actually flower. They were very, very small. They weren't the size they should be. And I checked it again. It's only about a couple of weeks ago, and you know what? It's still not grown one single root. And I repotted it again, and as you can see, it's beginning to fail on me again, and these growths are beginning to die off. So it's definitely a fail for me. That I'm not going to give up on it, but you know, we'll keep it a bit longer, see if we can rescue it for the second time, but I'm not feeling hopeful. On the other fail, again, you might have seen this one, the Dendrobium, what's this one? This is a Stardust Firebird. It's just a bundle of sticks at the moment. It's got a few little growths on it, but again, we got to the point with that where it was growing new buds, and they looked like they were about to come out, and then for some reason they thought, you know what, I've had enough of this blooming nonsense. I'm just going to drop everything, drop all my leaves, drop all my buds, blast them all, and I'm just going to grow a few cakeys instead. I've kept it, I've put it up in the warm side, even though it should be okay going down to cooler temperatures, and it might even need that. But it's a case of, I've tried that, it didn't work. Let's try and give it some warmer temperatures and see what it does. If I get some nicer plants, then obviously those are the ones that are going to make room. I'm going to get rid of those. Okay, so moving on in the Tropical Plants Awards of 2020. Most successful, unexpectedly successful video. Okay, well, out of all my videos, when I line them up, if I go back to right when I started, which is just over a year, it's a year and a month ago when I started doing videos on YouTube. And I would say the most unexpectedly successful videos are the Tradescantia videos. I've made quite a number of Tradescantia videos because they've been so successful. And I really don't know why. I like Tradescantia, but it's not like my absolute favourite plant. But for some reason, lots of people are interested in them, and lots of people look up videos on them and seem to enjoy the ones that I make. The most popular one was one called Stop the Trailing Habit of Wandering Dew, and it was one that I made in about 5 minutes, and it was simply about pinching out the growing tips of wandering dew and using those growing tips to not only stop the trailing branch and make it resprout further up the branch, but then I showed them how to just simply pot up those cuttings without doing anything special to them and getting them to regrow. I thought at the time everybody would know this. I mean, maybe this is just YouTube throwing it up, I don't know, but it's been viewed about 18,000 times at the moment, so it does seem to be quite popular. So that was that one. Let's move on to the next one. Most photogenic foliage plant. Right, well, this changes depending on the time of year. At one particular point, it would have been the Begonia luxurians, the palm leaf begonia. But that had a few issues this winter. I was led in from autumn into winter with some yellowing leaves at the bottom. I suspected it was the temperature. I've moved it over to the warmer side, and while it hasn't grown any, it's not produced any more yellowing leaves, and it has got a couple of new growths down the stem there. So I'm happy that one's been rescued, but that's not my favourite at the moment. The other one that I had loads of nice comments on was this Begonia Griffon, but again, this is another one that struggled in the cooler temperatures. I've moved it over here, but it still seems to be struggling, so whether the light's something to do with it or not, maybe it needs a repot. I do recall at this time last year I had a few problems with it. I think it just doesn't like winter. But I'll show you the one, for me, so far anyway, and it's not this one either. This is Begonia Tiger Paw. I made a nice video on this one all about the variety in it when you look across the different colours and the textures. But for me, I think it's probably this one. So this one is Begonia Curly Fireflush. This is the one that everybody, when they come in, they're kind of drawn to, because it's such a stunning vivid red with all these hairy stems and hairy leaves and the different colours and textures that you get on it. So for now, anyway, for me, this is my favourite foliage plant, but it may well change at another point. It's not a Tradescantia, surprisingly enough. And we move on to the most satisfying video to make. So, a lot of them have been satisfying. Some of them have been unexpectedly unsuccessful, and some of them have been unexpectedly successful. And the one that I'm going to choose was neither. It's quite a recent one, actually, so it's not actually been that popular amongst my subscribers. Now, whether that's because they already know orchid names, because of course it's the one that I did about orchid names and where they come from and what they tell you when you look at an orchid name. But for me anyway, the actual making of that video is the most satisfying, because I think I learnt the most from it. It's something that's kind of been on my mind for 12 months, trying to get to grips with it. And while I still don't have it completely solid in my head, I've got a pretty good idea, and I know it's only a matter of time and a matter of practice before I do. So for me, that was the most satisfying one to make. And it probably helps that it's quite recent as well, because when you've made, I think at this point it's about 186 videos, they do kind of all blur into one. How about best fragrance? So, well, that is not going to be easy to choose because lots of these plants have fragrance. I would say it isn't Oncidium Sherry Baby, even though it has a beautiful smell and it smells of chocolate a lot of the time. It's not my most favourite. I would actually say, and this isn't the winner, but I would actually say, for me anyway, because I know this is subjective, the Oncidium Twinkles have a far better fragrance, and it seems to be closer to you for some reason. Whether it's just where I have it, I don't know. But I prefer the fragrance to the Oncidium Twinkles, and this yellow one is looking particularly good at the moment, and it's going to look even better soon. I have another one which has a cinnamon scent to it, which will be coming out soon. But for me, the winner is going to be Borougera Nelly Isla Swiss Beauty, which is this one. So you've got a couple of the older blooms on the left there, and some nice new blooms on the right there. And for me, that is always the one that, as soon as you come in the greenhouse, this is the one that you can smell the scent of. So I would say that's got the best fragrance. And of course, it helps that it blooms for such a long time. I do have other ones that come into bloom at various times of the year that give me fragrance. But I think for bang for your buck, I would go for the Borougera. And the next award is my favourite Tradescantia hybrid. And I'll also tell you my least favourite as well. We'll give an award for the least favourite. So favourite, I would say, is still got to be Tradescantia Zebrina. I would say Zebrina is still going to be my favourite. I have one of them in the house in the darkest of areas, and it's doing fabulously well. So there's a reason why it's such a popular one. I think probably closely followed by Red Jewel. I've got Red Jewel over here. And this one, for some reason, is doing something that I've not seen any of the others do. Look at these aerial roots. None of my others have produced aerial roots like that yet. So it's a bit of a mystery as to why this one is. Maybe it's the temperature. So this one is being kept at 12 degrees and it's very humid in this side of the greenhouse. Normally we only get these roots, you can see them budding usually, but we normally only get them starting to grow and they're touching something. But for some reason, that one's producing roots now. So yeah, let's just move through to the other side. Before we do, I still like the tricolour minima, even though it's a bit of a tricky one. And we'll talk about the worst Tradescantia in a second. So this one is also Zebrina, and it looks different to the ones in the other side because of the temperatures. So they are quite changeable. And down here we've got all sorts of different colours and shapes. But the ones with the silver on, for me, are definitely the nicest ones out of the Tradescantias. And if we talk about my absolute worst Tradescantias, I would definitely go for the ones with pink in them, like Maiden's Blush. So this pathetic specimen is a Maiden's Blush. That pathetic specimen over there, this one, was also a Maiden's Blush. They're so small, even though I've had them 12 months, it's because I've cut them back, because I don't want a great big long stem of green leaves. I want the beautiful pink that we got when I originally bought it. Now, I've tried all sorts of things to get the pink to return, and nothing so far has been successful. I've been reliably informed that come springtime, then the pink will return, but I really do have my doubts. If we look at this one, we've got a tiny little bit just on that there. And if I take you through back to the cooler side again, I've cut all the stems off this one. This was a big one in the corner, and we've got some new growth there. There it is, with a little bit of pink, but nothing like when I first bought it. And you can see a little bit at the back there. So I thought if I cut all the other stems off, and it might encourage the pink to come. But at the moment, I'm thinking that I may well give up on those and get rid of them because they're taking up space. I have to water them, and for some reason, they just do not want to return to their former glory. This one, however, is a pink one that I do like. So this isn't Tradescantia fluminensis Nanuk Lilac. This one seems a lot more robust than the others, and it seems quite happy to carry on producing its pink for me. I'm still not that thrilled with the cobweb spiderwort, in as much as this is another one that seems very, very susceptible to the humidity that I have in this greenhouse. I mean, it's obvious really, isn't it, because of, you can see it really likes the dryness if it's going to be so hairy. And every time you get any kind of moisture on there, it doesn't like it. So this is another one that I've actually restarted it. I'm just thinking, my environment, I can't keep it dry enough. It's just too humid for that kind of a plant. So let's move on. We've nearly got to the end now. So we are talking next, the award for the most vigorous orchid. Well, it's got to be this Epicattleya in the corner. I mean, look at it. It's just going absolutely bananas. You wouldn't think I'd cut some live roots off it to get it into this pot. And what has it done to reward me there? I'll just turn it round a little bit. Bear in mind, this was about 3 weeks ago, and you can see all those roots there already over the side of the pot, and it's about to go into the other pot over there if I'm not careful. It's just a crazy thing. And I was going to repot it at one point, and then somebody said to me, I think it was Laura, said to me, why repot it if it's so happy, just leave it. And she's absolutely right. There's no need, is there? Unless it's showing a lack of vigour, or it's too big for the pot, then why not just leave it and let it do its thing? So that's what I'm doing. Save myself a job there. So yeah, I would definitely say that Epicattleya is my most vigorous orchid by far. So next one up is the easiest orchid with the most reward. And I've gone for the Dendrobium nobilis Starclass Apollon for that one. I think this is one that I purchased very early on, and honestly, no matter what I do with it, it just seems to be happy to keep throwing out these blooms. I mean, it's in its bit of a dry winter rest at the moment, however, it's still chucking out blooms. I don't know what that's going to be. I don't know if that's going to be a cakey or not. It just looks like 3 buds to me. Another bud there, another one there, another bunch down there. Whatever you do to it, I mean, I can water it, I can not water it, I can neglect it. It's quite happy. I think it did get a little bit of an attack of spider mite at one point. The slugs do like to eat it, so I've got to watch out for slug damage. But if there are ever any slugs in here, I know where to find them. Lift that pot up, that's where they're going to be. It tracks them, so that's pretty handy really, because I can always go and find them. But when that bloomed, and hopefully I'm going to show you something up on the screen, it looks spectacular. It was really, really nice when it bloomed, and unexpectedly so, because one bloom on its own just doesn't really, and there's another one from a keiki, just doesn't really look that nice, but get them all together and it really looks fabulous. So I would say that one for me wins the award for the easiest orchid to give you the most reward. 2 left. Biggest disappointment? Well, I would say my biggest disappointment is my Gloriosa lilies. I've got 2 of them. One of them, for some reason, there it is, didn't bloom and hasn't even bothered to go into dormancy. It just stayed as it is. The other one over here was looking like it was going to bloom, and all you're looking at now, unfortunately, is a pot. There is a bulb in there, but there's nothing above the surface, and it was about 3 feet high, and then a slug came along and ate the growing tip off it, and I thought, right, well, okay, don't panic, it's going to produce some side shoots. Well, I'm afraid it didn't. So for me, they were the most disappointing. However, they're not dead. They'll come back again. I can be patient, and hopefully next year that will be removed from that awards category and will start to show me something really nice. Okay, so I'm going to say my final awards are going to go to the most liked Instagram photographs. So this is like the most photogenic, I suppose you could say. The ones that, when I put them out on my Instagram account, people have hearted them the most. So what I'll do is I'll add that into this section of the video, and you'll be able to see. I think I'll do something like the top 5 most liked photographs. Okay, and if you're not following me on Instagram, go ahead and follow me over there. I'm sure you'll be able to find me. There's a link in the description if you can't. Okay. So in 6th place in my Instagram account with 74 likes or hearts was this gorgeous Streptocarpus DS Caramel. In joint 6th place, also with 74 votes or 74 likes, was this fabulous picture of a Cephalotus follicularis. In 4th place, and everybody likes a laugh, with 74 votes, was the frog. And of course, we all relate to this, don't we? So yeah, I can see why that was so popular. In 3rd place, with 76 hearts or likes, was the fantastic fern house at Tatton Park in Cheshire in the north of England. And in 2nd place, quite a surprising one for me, was the Bialara Purple Princess with 79 likes. And coming in 1st place, the most liked photograph on my Instagram account with 83 likes were these fabulous streptocarpus. So there we have it. Okay, so I hope you liked that little bit of a reflection and a few of my kind of tongue-in-cheek awards for the tropical plants in my greenhouse for 2020. And I'm very much looking forward to a tropical plant-filled 2021. And let's also hope that there's an end to this horrible pestilence and everybody is very well vaccinated and we can get on with life. Just actually having yesterday, Christmas Day, where we were allowed to have like a bubble of 3 families was absolutely fantastic, and it makes you realise what you're missing. So it'll be wonderful, and it also makes you think that Christmas really is about people. It's not about the presents and the trappings that go with it. It's about seeing people, and it's certainly made that stark to me anyway, if I didn't know previously. So all the best for 2020 and even more of the best for 2021. And I may well do some more videos between now and 2021. But I wish you a very Merry Christmas and a very Happy New Year. And here's to 2021.